Hello and welcome back to the Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege, live today on Monday, October 14th, to round out Week 6 of the NFL. We got one more game to get to on tonight's slate. We're going to preview the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets game, set to kick off at around 8:15 Eastern Time. We're going to preview that, the matchups, everything you need to know before tonight's matchup gets underway. Also, we're going to look back at some of the more important games that we saw over the course of Sunday. A lot of blowouts, some close games, but a lot of significance in each one of these games that we're going to go over. So make sure to stick around through the end of the show to watch all of that. And also, before we get going on today's show, if you guys want to get involved in the show and let your guys' thoughts be heard, any opinions, comments, or questions you'd like to make during today's show, you got an easy way to go about that now. Don't hesitate to drop any of those questions, comments, or opinions now by using the new Super Chat feature we have available to you guys. Just click the $sign at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat, and this way it guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead and let us know what you're thinking. Hit the Super Chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and as exciting as possible. Also, if you still like to tip and donate, but would rather an alternative option, you still have the GSMCpodcast.net tip and donations link to use if you'd like to leave a comment, question, or anything through that way. So again, we are so thankful to you guys for being part of this community, and don't hesitate to get involved in the show during these live episodes. So with that being the case now, we can jump into looking forward to the last game of Week 6, tonight between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. It will be an AFC East matchup tonight between the 2-3 Jets trying to stop a 2-game losing streak. Likewise, the Buffalo Bills trying to regain offensive efficiency after also back-to-back losses for them as well. First place in the division is up for grabs tonight. The Jets can somehow manage to be in first place in the division. If they end up with a victory tonight, they'd be 3-3, but they'd have the head-to-head over the Bills. And likewise for the Bills, they could stay in first place if they were to win tonight, or they would surrender that if they drop to 3-3 and lose 3 straight games in a row. Also, with that being the case, right, the Bills have never lost 3 straight games with Josh Allen as their quarterback, and also the Bills are 15-8 in their last 23 meetings against the Jets as well. So take that for what it's worth, and think about who you think will win tonight. It's a pretty close call, honestly. Andre, what's going on, Andre? Welcome to the show. But yeah, I'm not going to get into my prediction yet. We'll save that towards the end. But looking at both of these teams a little bit closer, it'll be first for the Jets. It'll be the debut of interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich after the Jets ambassador Woody Johnson fired Robert Saleh last week, and because they played last Sunday. They played last Sunday, and then the entirety of last week was all dominated by Robert Saleh's firing. That was everything you ever heard of last week on throughout the week. That's all you ever heard of. Robert Saleh firing, what went into it, what did Aaron Rodgers think of it, how are they going to look now heading into this next game? So now, it's showtime now, right, for the Jets to prove and kind of show that this is the typical fire head coach. It sparks everything up, and you get a massive win the next game after, right? That's typically what teams are looking for when they make a move like this. But also, Andre, who exactly is this new coach? What was his role before becoming head coach? He was the defensive coordinator to Robert Saleh, and he just got basically promoted from that, as simple as that. And Jeff Ulbrich, I don't know too much about him before, his time with the Jets. All I know is that he's been with Robert Saleh this entire time as his defensive coordinator. So he gets elevated, and he is the interim head coach now, while also, speaking of those changes, Jeff Ulbrich, one of the moves he made throughout last week was having to decide whether or not Nathaniel Hackett was going to continue calling plays for them on offense, or was he going to go in a different direction. And Then it was revealed in an announcement, I want to say last Wednesday, that Jeff Ulbrich announced Todd Downing as the new play caller for the Jets. He was calling plays to his list of responsibilities while Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator still, he is not going to be calling the plays any longer. So I don't know exactly what he is going to do, but he is still on the team and whatnot. He hasn't been fired or anything like that. It's that's the situation the Jets face right now. And something needed to change, obviously, right? Because after the loss to the Broncos, that was a tough watch because of the elements. The offensive performance by both teams wasn't great. And it didn't get much better against the Minnesota Vikings. So Ambassador Woody Johnson felt like something needed to change. So he got rid of Robert Saleh. Whether or not you think that's the right decision, we talked about it on this show, how we were very much against it. But there's nothing they could do about it now, right? They've committed to this team. They have so much riding on it. The expectations are there. And now making a move like this, you're really doubling down on this team, on really making the main focus of this being Aaron Rodgers and just the players, right? More so Aaron Rodgers, I guess you could say, just because everything around the Jets, the expectations, the optimism, the hype, the hope that he gave everybody was around Aaron Rodgers. Now, there's no excuse anymore, right? There's no, the head coach is bad. There's no, the offensive play calling's bad because Nathaniel Hackett is off of that now. It's all really left with no excuses now for this Jets team, so they have that to play for, right? They have to play for proving everyone wrong right now in this situation, and also really getting the most out of this investment by the Jets because they invested so much in it, and the offense really hasn't been there. Looking at the Jets so far in 2024, they rank 27th in overall offense. Their rushing offense is last in the NFL. Their passing offense is a little bit better at 19th, and they're 25th in scoring, which again is unacceptable for a team that had so much riding into this year, and also just with Aaron Rodgers, right? To have the 25th scoring offense is not what you expect with having a Hall of Famer as your quarterback and the level of talent that they do have. So that obviously needs to improve. And looking at the injuries for this team, I haven't seen any updated lists yet of anything so far on the injury standpoint. You know, C.J. Mosley and Morgan Moses are still questionable. I haven't seen it be updated, so we'll bring this to you, I'm sure, probably in the last segment before kickoff. So that's the Jets on this side of the game. Now on the other side, the Bills, not too much better over the last two games also for the Bills. They had a closer game against the Houston Texans, but they really were at the fault, you know, they were at the source of their own demise because of those choices that we saw at the end of the game, throwing it 3 straight times, pretty much costing them the game. There was that, but also we've seen the offense struggle, not so much like the Jets because I think it's a little bit different with them, but with the Bills, it just seems like guys aren't getting open. It seems like it's been the most evident over the last 2 games where they've really missed a guy like Stephon Diggs, obviously, and it just feels like they're too pass-heavy now. Where like we already knew there was those deficiencies on offense, regardless of whether you liked Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir looked decent, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Dalton Kincaid. If you like that set of receivers, right, there's no problem with that, but it just feels like now when you get too pass-heavy, then we're pushing past the boundary a little bit. They're not able to have Josh Allen pass for that amount of times and still be competitive. That's where I feel like you get the offensive drive stalling, and you don't really get into a flow like you did before when the running game was more prominent. And you could look at it a bit of, or one of two ways, right? Either they are too pass heavy, like they're too quick to just give up on the run, or their defense just really isn't holding as much as they would have liked, and therefore they go to the pass a lot quicker. So whichever side of the ball they could fix up quicker heading into this game will be huge for them to try and get some momentum back. But it is going to be tough because Von Miller is still suspended. There's going to be no Ed Oliver in tonight's game. So this is a chance for the Jets to get that running game going with those 2 guys missing. And looking at this offense as well, not too much better than the Jets. Pretty much the same thing. They're 22nd overall on offense. Their rushing offense is better with 14th being the ranking, and their passing offense is 24th. Well, have been pretty rough. So looking at this matchup now, two things I'm looking at in direct matchups will be the injured Bills running defense, like I just said, Von Miller, and two things that you could certainly take advantage of, right? If the Bills were fully healthy, you could guarantee that that running defense would be a lot better to stifle Breece Hall yet again and keep him, inefficient. But Breece Hall, it's not like he's injured or anything. It's not like, they're missing every offensive lineman or something like that. He is still there. They are capable of running it. So hopefully for the Jets' sake, they can get that going because they can't be last place in rushing. They're way too talented for that. So whichever side of that matchup can get it going first and benefit more will be a huge decider in tonight's match. And also, a couple things I'm looking at is how much Todd Downing will try to implement some of his ideas and how much change will he bring to this Jets offense. Now, I know it's unrealistic to change the entire playbook, but some new plays, some new formations that this team is trying to incorporate into their offense, different looks, motions, because this offense has been very standstill. How much of that can Todd Downing bring, and how efficient can the Jets be with that as well? And lastly, can Buffalo pressure Aaron Rodgers, because there's going to be no Ed Oliver and Von Miller. So, that offense hasn't really held up too well. The Vikings blitzed the heck out of Aaron Rodgers last week and almost got him killed. So can Buffalo do the same and give him those troubles, or are those losses on that side going to be too big to overcome? And with that being said, who's going to win tonight? This is like one of those games I'd take a spread, because I don't know directly who's, like, it's so close between these two teams. I feel like I would go with the Bills. I feel like I'm going to go with the Bills because I trust them a little bit more. I think there's too many changes going on with the Jets right now that it all falls perfectly into place, at least this week. I think it'll take just this week to iron some things out, and then they'll get going. But yeah, I think I trust the Bills. I trust Josh Allen a little bit more to take advantage a little bit more of this matchup and all the distractions that the Jets are going through. I'm going to go with the Bills. Josh just needs to settle down a little bit, trust the running game a bit more, and if they could do that with this Jets defense, it'll make it easier for them going up against, Sauce and Quinnen and Quincy Williams and all those guys. So we're going to go with the Bills just barely to keep hold of first place in the AFC East, and the Jets unfortunately will fall to 2-4 going forward, with me thinking that they're going to lose tonight. So that is tonight's matchup, but we can't go through this episode too long without talking about the games that we saw yesterday. We're going to get to the Ravens and the Commanders game, Drake May's debut as well, but coming up right after the break, of course, the Lions and the Cowboys game. Not so much of a game, but what did we learn from it? What happened during this game? And are the Lions the best offense in the NFL? We'll answer that all when we return after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the Chip Shot Football Podcast, here today, live again on Monday, October 14th, and we got to talk about one of the biggest games we saw yesterday, not in terms of excitement or in terms of, just a thriller overall, but just the fact that coming into this game, it was deemed as a must-watch game. It was America's Game of the Week on Fox and everything like that. But the Lions showed all of America, basically, the difference between truly what it is to be a true contender, especially in that NFC, and a fringe, playoff team in the Dallas Cowboys. Unfortunately, the Cowboys lose another home game. They're now 3-3, and Detroit got revenge from last season's 2023 game, obviously, where there was that whole confusion with the offensive tackle reporting is eligible, the referee saying he wasn't, and the Lions being outraged by it, rightly so, and trying like 3 other times that two-point conversion or that touchdown. I forget which one it was, but it all just kind of like really got out of control from that point on. So it was a lot of unrest and a lot of, salty feelings after that, and now the Lions had to wait a whole year for them to get revenge on them, and boy, did they. With a 47-9 win in Dallas, and now they're 4-1 coming off of their bye week, promptly they're top of the NFC, or one of the top NFC teams, because the Vikings are still 5-0, and there's just a lot of good teams in the NFC overall. But more on Dallas so far after a loss like this. All of Dallas's losses this year have come at home. They've been outscored 119-53 just in 2024. That doesn't account for their last playoff game at home against the Packers, which just enlarges the difference even more. But it's been a 3-game stretch where it's hard to even put a finger on to why that is. When you're talking about the Cowboys, you hear everybody saying like they can't stop the run, they can't run the ball, they're too one-dimensional, too reliant on CeeDee Lamb, their offensive line isn't very good. And when you think of a team like that, you're thinking that at home you at least got to be a little bit better. But it's been the complete opposite, right? On the road, they've put up more of a fight against, albeit the Giants, albeit the Steelers, who, the Steelers are 4-2, but there are definitely some doubts there over their legitimacy. So, and the Browns, we know what the Browns are now at 1-5. That was just sort of a hint of what the Browns were really going to be this year. So, it's very odd. I guess they had to play a tougher road game to really see where they're at. But yeah, this one in particular was the worst home loss for the Cowboys since 1988. And the Cowboys become the first team since 2000 at least to trail by 14 points, obviously including the Green Bay Packers. And yeah, that's the kind of situation the Cowboys are dealing with, right? They're getting to a point where it's so bad that it's getting historically bad, right? And it might not get any easier. We'll look at their schedule a little bit later on. But looking at the stats from this game, Jared Goff in the offense for the Lions was really just hard to find anything wrong with what they did. Goff was 18 of 25, 315 yards and 3 touchdowns, had a quarterback rating of 153. David Montgomery, 12 carries, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs added another 63. And the Lions had 4 receivers with at least 52 yards or more. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and Sam Laporta were the 3 wide receivers that scored touchdowns on the day. So as good as you can get from an offense from the Lions on Sunday. Also, on the other side, Dak and this Cowboys offense, I expected a little bit more just because, it's become pretty evident now, obviously, that they're just going to have to pass to try and get back into these games, I should say. They did it against the Ravens. They made a little comeback there towards the end. Against the Steelers, it was all Dak, throwing 2 or 3 interceptions, I believe, but still, not being afraid to throw the ball down the field and get chunk yards like that against the Steelers most recently. And this game, it felt definitely different because Dak finished 17 for 33, 178 yards, and 2 more interceptions. 53 total rushing yards by Rico Dowdle and Zeke. Again, also CeeDee Lamb, just to include him in here, 7 receptions for 89 yards. And one thing I liked once just looking at the game overall. And one thing I really liked about the Lions that I don't think the Steelers did quite enough was that that they blitzed the heck out of Dak and this Cowboys offensive line. Last week against the Steelers, I feel like they showed him a bit too much respect. Dak's a great quarterback, right? Against the blitz, you always say don't blitz the really good quarterbacks because they'll pick you apart. And that's true. I think Dak has the capability of doing that. But when you don't really blitz him all night and you give him time, regardless of how good your pass rush is, they're gonna find eventually an open receiver, right? The coverage can only stay close to their man for so long before somebody gets open, right? So, I like that the Lions took a very uber aggressive approach to it. They sacked Dak on a couple of different occasions, and they just really didn't give him enough time to find deep plays down the field, right? They didn't let anything really develop down the field that could hurt them. They took all the little underneath routes and stuff like that, but a lot of times, Dak just took the hit, and a couple times, he threw that interception in the red zone. Bad read. Brian Branch easily intercepted that, and his second one, I don't recall what exactly it was. I was in and out of this game for obvious reasons, right? But still, that was one thing I liked that the Lions did. The Lions never punted in this game either. Everything was a touchdown or a field goal, except the end of a half drive, technically, and one failed fourth down attempt. So, again, that just speaks about how good of a day they had on offense. And it's bad when in this game you saw the Lions try to throw a touchdown to their tackle Decker. They tried a lateral play to Penei Sewell. They had their other offensive tackle Dan Skipper in at wide receiver. This, it came to a point where it was just so just unserious, just like nobody really cared anymore. And did the Cowboys give up? Maybe you could say that, but they really couldn't do too much. The offensive line for the Lions was really just moving people out of the way. It was just like just like snow plowing people out of the way. That line, it was impenetrable. Any gap that the Cowboys tried to blitz through or try to get through, again, it was just like a solid wall, just moving people out of the way, left or right, and the running backs just flowingly, just running for like 5-6 yards before contact was made. It was insane. But it got to that kind of point where it was just so unserious that the Lions were trying different things out. You also know it's bad when Jordan Lewis, the Cowboys safety or just secondary player, DMs Amon-Ra St. Brown afterwards and calls him a you-know-what. If you haven't seen it, you can find it anywhere, but it's pretty funny. That's how bad it got, right? When you're DMing the other team just to show your frustration, that's how bad it got yesterday for the Cowboys. But also the Lions, not everything was perfect for them because they unfortunately lost their pass rusher, Aiden Hutchinson, to a broken tibia in that third quarter when he was trying to wrap up Dak to sack him, and his left leg sort of swung around the back of him and just hit one of his teammates' legs, if I'm not mistaken. And he stayed down, and you could see it from his face. You could kind of lip read also where he said like it broke, like his leg broke or something like that. And there were some more announcements today that he was going to be out the remainder of the season. He's going to be out, I think I saw, like 6 to 8 months or something like that after surgery. And it's really unfortunate because this Lions team is so good, obviously, on offense. We've praised them throughout this segment, but really Aiden Hutchinson is their best player on defense. He was a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. He was leading the NFL in sacks as well, so it's really hard to see him go down in a game that was pretty much just out of reach already. So, of course, they're not going to pull anyone at that point, but, those kind of thoughts kind of pop up when you're dealing with something like this, and for him to be out now the entire year. It's definitely a hard pill to swallow after such a dominant performance against the Cowboys. And on that question, are the Lions the best offense in the NFL? I think it's a fair question to really consider them. I think it's either them or the Ravens, honestly, just because of the dominance in the running game. the passing game working so well off of it. I think the Lions have better receivers than the Ravens do, but you can argue that Derrick Henry is just on a different level than anybody else, that he tops the Lions running game. So, it's these two teams that I think are really starting to separate themselves a little bit, while other teams are still showing some good signs, but there are definitely some flaws bigger in other teams that are not so prevalent with the Lions and the Ravens so far. So the best offense in the NFL, you can really make a case for the Lions, I believe. And for Dallas, standing at 3-3 right now, Dallas's home form right now is alarming, and that's why when you look at it big picture and how the whole thing with the Cowboys is trying to get to the playoffs and more playoff success, right? Obviously, the home form for this Cowboys team is alarming, because if you can't even have home field advantage in the playoffs, then what are we even talking about, you even being in the playoffs, if you can't even have an advantage at your own home field? And the way things are going right now, it looks like you're going to be on the road. But even still, at 3-3, it fills you with a lot of doubts of whether or not they can even make the playoffs and have a game at all. Because you look at, there's about like 10 teams that they're competing with right now. You look at the Commanders,